Alright. Thank you very much for hanging out, guys. Welcome to Pig Daily, episode number 117. Today is a nice, quick, simple show talking about defending 12 pool in PvZ. I'm still trying to gather up some perfect replays for some of the other shows I've been working on. So this is going to be a real quick one. I've got my mate Eon Blue here, my moderator, who's going to 12 pool me. I'm going to defend it. We're going to kind of, look at how to defend and so on. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start out actually looking at a couple games of stats. Just before we do that, very quickly, let's take a look at stats defending Bial's 12 pools last nights. Last nights? Me speak good English words. Here we go. So, this was on Cactus Valley, where Bial was basically gambling that stats would not scout the 12 pool, would not scout him early. And even though stats kind of screws up his probe positioning slightly there, lets the Zerglings in. Notice it's 4 probes, a Zealot, and he's going to wall in behind there while building a second Zealot. And even though these Zerglings get in the main, 3 slow Zerglings, not that hard to deal with. It's just whenever they come in, you just kind of A-move your probes at them. And once the Zealot's on top of them, you're completely fine. Cancels the pylon block, gets this Zealot down. This hold could have been a lot easier, but even gods like stats make a little bit of mistake. By the way, can you guys call me out every time I say gods? Every time I call a player a god, can you guys please call me out on that shit? I swear it's like the most overused word in the StarCraft community. Apparently every player is a god to the point where it has literally 0 meaning anymore. Yeah, we also need better nicknames for players. Like Godchio is fine, right? Nurchio had the god nickname, Godchio, but we need to stop calling other players gods, unless they really are absolutely dominant. Beyond deserves that name. He deserves that name as well. Anyway, guys, so yeah, it's held. It doesn't look too bad always until the Protoss pressures and the Zergs are like, well, my third's really late and I don't have many workers and I'm up a shit creek without a paddle. And if you can imagine a person in a creek of shit and they don't have a paddle and they're scooping shit with their hands, that's usually what the 12 pool player ends up like if you do a nice textbook defense like that. Let's look at one other example here quickly. This is from this is last night GSL, by the way. Sorry, I do want to. I should really give you guys spoiler warnings. A lot of the games are actually very close and back and forth, and the results aren't necessarily as one-sided as I make out. But definitely there is usually a Protoss advantage. What we can see, though, is this same kind of formula to the defense. Delay the Nexus, 4 probes, Zealot, and just try to stop these Zerglings getting in. Here we see stats, do the PiG. This is what I call the PiG. Watch what he does with this Zealot. Now notice these probes, they're meant to body block that Zealot. They're meant to stop him getting surrounded, but he's going to do the PiG. That's the PiG right there. It's where you let your Zealot get surrounded. That's my level of micro right there. So even stats does a PiG once in a while and just like derps his Zealot, his probes stop body blocking, and yeah, gets surrounded. But enough Zerglings die in the process. He doesn't really care. 2 Zealots then in the depth, and it's all good. Easy holds, easy life. What more can you say? Alright guys, I'm going to walk you guys through the response, what you need to remember to do. I am going to then talk about the micro a little bit and some fancy things you can do with worker micro in general. Excuse me. My throat's a little bit scratchy this morning. So I'm just checking Eon Blue's ready. We're going to dive into game. Let's do this. So, yeah, we're using the Salt mod, the save and load tool, if you guys have never used that. So, you can play multiplayer games and you can actually save at certain points in the game and then load with it. Really easy to do. If you're ever wondering how to create a game using a mod, just go to your custom game menu, host up a game, and all you need to do is, rather than click create game, click create with mod, which is the button right next to it. So, I am obviously going to click Protoss at the start here. The start's a little bit weird in Salt. You can see the game time is slightly different as well because of the kind of slightly weird starting, but everything works out identical. So your wall off is very important. I did a daily on this just the other week. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to leave 4 spaces below that pylon, and you want it perfectly lined up with either that plate or just kind of on top of that tip. Just the tip. Just directly above this little pokey bit. This is one of the best walls you can have on this map. very well. So, normally you want to block your opponent's natural. So even when they're going 12 pull, obviously I know he's going 12 pull, you're always going to block for a bit. But this is a great move from the Zerg to kind of buy time. And usually no later than about a minute, you've already potentially delayed that hatch enough to get a nice little advantage. And at that point you want to scout through the main base. And you want to see what's up. Now this is a very standard expand build that I'm doing. And I go, oh shit, he's got a spawning pool already, guys. Oh my god. Oh my god. And I'd like that second pylon to be powering that gateway if possible. And you want to start a cyber core straight away. So notice, I'm not dropping my second gas, I'm not dropping my nexus. I am keeping up probe production. Now I've made a little mistake here, in that I'm not actually blocking his natural. That's okay.
Fewer probes means more space for units. Great plan, boss.
He kind of tried to chase that probe a little bit, but okay, he's gonna get the natural down.
Your probes are under attack.
Let's queue up a second zealot. And these are my units.
Your probe count is being downsized.
Now, some people like to put the zealot on it.
Relax, the game's paused.
Alright, shit. Yeah, I forgot to save the game. So, I just clicked save. Oh, is that all you need to do? Just save. I thought you needed to choose a slot. You don't need to choose a slot anymore. Okay. Let's see if this works. And it's always just for...
Resume the real-time strategy.
Whoops. Ah, okay.
Back to the carnage. Your probes are under attack.
So there we go. Okay, that's how... I haven't used the save function in here for a while. So normally you just leave like one guy on gas or whatever. You basically just defend however. There's usually a weak point where quite a lot of Zerglings arrive just before your second Zealot's there, and you want to kind of back off, let your buildings tank a bit, and that's when you re-engage. And always queue up an Adept immediately after that. You can start Warp Gate research. That's actually a lot of Zerglings. So just to be safe, I am going to pull down a few more probes. Now, if you're not really confident in your micro, even from the very beginning, you can choose to pull more probes than 4. If you want to play it like slightly safer, you're just like, look, I'm just going to pull 5 probes every game. I'm going to pull 6 probes. That's fine, but don't try to pull any more than that, because it will make your life very difficult.
Combat. Where shall we march? Let your will be. Yes,
Adon Atum. My meditation.
And then you've got your Nexus down, and you basically just kind of macro up. So we are going to play this out in the follow-up a little bit. Now, early on, because I saw he went in expansion and didn't have a gas, notice I'm not worried about a wall-off. This is something which is very important, which a lot of players stress over unnecessarily. They're kind of like, oh, I need to get a wall. And it's like, not really. I'm going to go for Twilight Council because I like to get those upgrades very early for my units to make them better quality. You can even go out and counter pressure, but I would say about 4 minutes is usually where, even with a delayed gas, their ling speed might be kicking in. So I'm building a mothership core now as well.
Yes, Executor. Ire shall be
So I'm just going to go have a poke around with these 2 adepts, and this is important to do some counter scouting. Besides that, I'm actually not worried at all, right? In terms of how I'm playing this. Like, I just don't seem to care that much. And then you can jump into their base and you can see things like, wow, that's a lot of Zerglings.
Research is done. Let's hope.
And because the Zergling speed's so late, they're usually going to have a big bit of trouble actually stopping you from scouting that stuff. And then I can be like, well, let's just go 2-base Robo right now. And even if I lose these adepts, I don't care, because it's going to give me the information on what to do next, right? So my Warp Gate research is done. I've got a mothership core. Now, something which I have forgotten to do is put a probe on a patrol path to watch for the dreaded the dreaded Overlord drops, which, as you can see,
glorious combat is upon us.
okay. So, because I was a little bit I didn't really respect this as much as I should have, and as a result, things are getting a little bit messy, but you gotta understand your opponent's all in, so you don't really need to freak out that much.
You require my skills. I am here in the shadows. Very well.
And you're basically on 2 bases, yeah.
I am the voice.
The firstborn shall persevere. Where?
And from there it's held.
Upgrade's done.
GG.
Relax, the game's paused.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna basically just cut that down to the details, guys. You always want to scout early in PvZ for this, you know, specific reason for this rush. Even if you scout after Gateway, say on a map like Newkirk Precinct, the distance is longer. So a lot of Protoss players, you don't want to be scouting after Pylon because you're not going to get there in time to block their hatchery. So you're like, well, what's the point in going so early? I might as well leave that probe down there, build the gateway, and then go scout a bit later. Even if you scout with that, you will still always scout before your nexus goes down. And that's the important thing, right? You can be doing a standard gate, gas, nexus into core expand, and as long as you scout at any moment before that nexus goes down, you can go, whoa, don't put the nexus down, immediately put down a second pylon, chrono boost a zealot, put down a cyber core, and just go 2 zealots, an adept, pull 4 probes to the front. Now you should pylon block their natural. Remember, I was slightly late on doing that this game, so I missed that. Let's take a look now back at those VODs really quickly, and I want to show you guys something really cool actually. Because if you're not super confident, you might not want to go for this, but if you are a higher level player, this is what you really should be doing against a 12 pool. So check this out. So Stats actually scouts. He actually scouts, what's his name? Bial. Jesus Christ, my brain. He scouts Bial first, and Bial does this thing where he sends down the fake drones, and Stats doesn't even know there's a 12 pool yet. And check this out. He pylon blocks the natural and goes to the third, and he's going to pylon block this as well. In some ways, this kind of helps him out because it slows down his nexus going down because that's a lot of minerals. But he then also, you know, he goes into the main base, and his whole thing, no matter what he's doing, is Stats always wants to check for the Zerglings coming out of the base, no matter what build he's doing, right before the Nexus will go down. And if he sees those Zerglings, he goes, that's fine, the gateway's just finished, Chrono Boost Zealots, put down the core, it's all good. So if you can squeeze in pylon blocks, that's actually pretty massive. And especially on these maps with a narrow ramp like Cactus, it's so easy to defend. You got this single space choke between 2 big, thick, healthy buildings. It makes things very, very easy. If you're not as confident, you don't need to go for those pylon blocks. You can just focus on, you know, defending at home, getting a faster nexus yourself, and that works fine. Of course, there is also the scenario where your opponent goes gas. So what changes if your opponent's gone like 13 gas, 12 pool with a gas right after? You don't need to pylon block their natural straight away, or even at all necessarily. You can still potentially do that, but basically you do the exact same reaction, you're just more careful in the follow-up, because they can have things like Zergling speed, potentially Banelings busting off one base, or like, you know, a natural expansion going down doesn't mean they've actually droned it up. They can elevate a Zerglings into your main. So basically you just respect the follow-up a little bit more. You make sure your Mothership Core comes out like as quickly as possible after that Adept. You make sure you're watching for that elevator into your main base, and you really just over-prepare for an all-in, because if a Zerg opens up with a gas pool, the thing is, by the time the first Zergling speed kicks in, they're not actually going to have any units left in your base. Like, your defense initially is still the same, except they've invested a lot more in units which aren't drones and hatcheries, so it will slow down everything that they're doing a lot. So that's your response, guys. I've talked about all the important points there. Yep, Chrono the Zealots. So during the pressure, you often put down that Nexus at 400 minerals. If you're busy microing, your Nexus is a bit late, it's not that important. If you're a kind of mid-tier player rather than someone who's in GM and kind of wants to put down the Nexus in the middle of the battle. All right, so let's go through and just talk about the reaction and the micro a little bit more. I did choose Paladino specifically because this map is is one with a really awkward wall and a very close rush distance, which makes things very awkward. Alright. Ready to load.
Resume the real-time strategy.
So what we're going to do now, using this beautiful, beautiful salt mod, is we're going to click load. And now it's going to load just when his Zerglings were first coming in. It does take a few seconds to fix up where everything is.
We are the blades of ire.
Where are Zerglings?
Honor guides me. For order.
Might be that it messed up his hotkeys or something.
Your base has some
Whoa!
uninvited guests.
Okay.
And Tara, my meditation is over.
This is quite late. So I think we'll restart and do one more run through because I really want to show you guys the initial defense, as I think that's the scariest part. Remember, it's just buying time as well. Like, if you're not going to get a good angle, there's no reason to fight. But if you can say fight in a choke point like that, it's like, oh, alright, yeah. Oops. Notice just pulling back those... Pulling back those weakened probes. Let's show that one more time. Because I actually started mishitting my hotkey there. So, what you can also do, guys, is you can... Because your Zerglings, your probes aren't actually fighting units, there's different threat levels for every single unit in an engagement, right? So if your probes are just on an attack command doing their standard thing, then the enemy units will attack them, right? Notice they'll automatically attack them with an A move. They'll prioritize it the same as a Zealot. They're like, these units can all kill me, therefore I must watch out for all of them. So what we're going to watch now is I'm going to go into the open, I'm going to let them surround me. And what you can do... Okay, so all I wanted to show was those two probes. Why did they both survive on red hit points? I told them to hold position just as they got low on life. And because they held position, the Zerglings that were attacking them immediately said, you know what, these guys aren't a threat anymore, go kill other shit. And that's a really good thing you can do as any race and any worker fight. You can quickly go through, clicking on all the deep orange and red workers and going stop or hold position. And then immediately after you can actually A move them again, which is this really cool thing. Come with 8lings into my main, showing probe stop micro. So you can actually immediately you can immediately A move them afterwards, and because the Zerglings that are in surface area with them will have retargeted a different fighting unit, they, even though they're sitting there on 5 hit points and they're fighting again, they usually won't die. which is cool. So I'm just gonna bring my probes down, and we can see exactly what I'm talking about. Jeez, where are you Zerglings, Xeon Blue? Hurry up, mate. So this sort of micro is especially important if you're playing a 4-player map. Of course, guys, on a 4-player map, it's very important if you're playing Cactus Valley, if you're playing Honor Grounds, to scout immediately. Let's check this out. Hold position micro, guys. Notice a few of those probes stayed on low hit points. I then A moved them a little bit later. Not the perfect scenario to show it because probes are so weak and because I've got a bit of lag because I'm playing on US West, so I can't really show it off all that well. Whoops, I just turned my sound off. But you get the idea. The other thing you can do is manually click the probes and then click them back on minerals, so they not only sorry, that black screen is kind of nasty. So they're not only, you know, stopping themselves from being a threat, but they're also getting out of dodge as well. And that's something which can be very nice. So you can just kind of click them, pull back, click, pull back, click, pull back. But because they stop body blocking as well, you know, you've got to keep in mind this stuff. Now, that's also something where camera hotkeys really help in these scenarios. Is you'll notice just there, I kind of just go bam, click. So I like box some units, and then I just zoom to my main camera hotkey, and I do that. Also, yeah, check this out. So he's going to keep harassing my mineral line now. Notice you just box the workers that are nearby, you A move them, and you pull back any workers that he's targeting. And this takes a lot of practice to get really good at it. When you're first starting out, when you're in the lower leagues, you don't really need to have, you know, this down to a fine art or anything like that.
Shall persevere.
But notice he's going to try and click on probes. He finally got one there. But just being able to do that micro is really useful. This is so good. So that works out very nicely.
Yes,
Um,
Executor.
In terms of that hold position, it also is useful for blocking surface area. So if you have probes that are about to die, but they're very important to block position for the Zealot, it can be very important.
Downsized.
And this is especially effective at lower levels. It can be very important to just leave them in position. So notice that, like, if the Zealot's there, for instance, if you pull these probes back, these Zerglings get a surround. But because they kind of body block, it'll buy a bit of important time for that Zealot to stay alive. So these little maneuvers make a big difference. Now, especially at low level. Oh shit, the game's freaking out, guys. I think we loaded too many times and it's bugging pretty hard. But yeah, it's very important, especially... Whoa, I can't even drag boxes now. Okay. Let's restart one more time. I block your bases. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna restart. Okay. Because it seems to be crashing. I'm hoping a restart is gonna clean everything up and hopefully it'll let me micro my stuff again. But yeah, guys, it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. The real thing is being tight with your pylon being on time, being tight with your gateway being on time. All these basic essentials of a build order are so important in order to hold off rushes like this. And then just getting a little bit of practice with that micro, doing a lot of that back and forth micro with the Zealot and the probes, making sure you know your wall off and you've got that memorized is always gonna help. All of these sort of things are great. Oh yeah, it's not letting me click on units. I can only box them. Okay. Holy shit. Yeah, sorry guys, the game is still a bit screwed. So that's fine. I already showed you guys all the details anyway. I am just going to show you guys that it is important to block, and that should be good. So if you want to be a real pain in your opponent's ass, you can still do this and it doesn't really cost you too much. So you can go full stats and be like, oh, I'm gonna block your expansion. And if you do this, it doesn't actually cost you too much. So it's very sexy to do that. Feels very good. And then you've just got to make sure you check by about 1 minute. So I think I might have already missed the Zerglings leaving. I think his Zerglings are late. Not sure. So anyway, I've seen that it's an early pool now. I go, oh shit! Get a second pylon up. Get that core up. Okay, and I'm just gonna check that that is indeed his base. Looks
Your
like
probe
it
count
is.
is being downsized.
Oh no, it won't let me box units. Okay, it'll let me box units from that direction.
Your pylons are under attack.
I don't normally box from that direction very much, but... And here you go. Cool. And we'll just try and do a little bit of micro, though. It probably won't work very well. But yeah, use choke points. Always try to like create a sort of concave on your side of the choke point whenever possible. Pull back. So what happens is if he pulls back and I just A-move after him, my units will give up the concave, right? And the moment you're winning the fight, your priority goes from body blocking to pulling probes away. Because once you're ahead, they're just going to try and kill probes, and any probe they get is obviously the best value they can get. Whereas early on, it's about keeping the Zealots alive. And if you lose a probe or two, it's not the end of the world. You don't really care, because you've just got way more economy than your opponent anyway. And that works out. Cool, cool. All right, guys. So yeah, check it out. So anyway, all the fancy probe micro is very important if you scout your opponent last on 4-player maps. There's always a 1 in 3 chance on those maps, even with a pylon scout, that you scout them last and your nexus has already gone down when you scout them. This is one of these chances you kind of just accept in StarCraft. If you're someone who's like, no, I want a 100% chance of safety against everything, and I'm not good enough with my probe micro to rely on that, you'll just kind of go like, okay, I will send out my probe before my pylon on 4-player maps. And I think you can, like, if you send it out at the very start of the game, I think you could just barely scout the 4th location in time, but it's kind of unnecessary, I think. Trying to play that overly safe is always a little bit paranoid, because you're like, in 3% of my games, I will die to this, because it's a 1 in 3 chance on a map where there's already only a 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 chance that the person is 12 pulling you anyway. So unless everybody is 12 pulling you on ladder, you don't need to worry about that. Even when you do go for the fast nexus, if you work on your probe micro right through to like the lower end of GM, you can actually still hold on even while having a nexus down. You just need to pull a lot more probes, because you're not going to have that zealot out. You're just going to have to wait for your adept. Your adept will be your first unit that you build. You'll be like, oh shit, getting out an adept and maybe a mothership core, maybe delay warp gate research. And you have to pull like all 15 probes to defend the front and make sure the Zerglings don't get inside your base. Let's take a look at Twitch chat, see if there's any questions. I can't imagine there would be. It's like very self-explanatory, this topic. Yeah, very good. Cool. So trying to hold on to concaves, use the Terrian, use the chokes. Don't let the Zerglings run past for free. But if they do get past, like I said, don't stress out. Just finish, just leave some units at the front. Normally your opponent will stop at 10 Zerglings. So an important distinction to make also is, what if they build 14 Zerglings? What if 16 Zerglings come? You're like, I already killed the first wave of Zerglings and there's another 10. That's when you really start committing a little bit more to safety as well, because you're like, what the shit? He's not droning behind this? That's when you start being like, okay, just get the wall down. As soon as my Nexus is done, get that wall finished at the front. Of course, on maps like Cactus Valley, your job is made easy because your wall is finished before they even get there, and everything becomes nice and easy. Beautiful. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed today's daily. Just a quick little helpful tip for you Protoss players. A couple of dailies that I'm going to be doing next week. Just a heads up. First of all, send in your replays using the restriction challenge for ICFAR, and I will have a good chance of casting your replays. What you have to do at the start of that is announce 5 units in chat at the beginning of the game that you're not going to use, and at least one of those units needs to be a core unit. So an Adept, Stalker, Zealot, Marine, Marauder, Zergling, or Roach. One of those units you need to restrict yourself from using. The more of those you restrict yourself from using, the more kind of like magic points you get in my brain, and the more chance of me casting your match if you manage to win without using those. I guess there'll just be like a Terran player who's just like playing mech. He's like, I don't even build those units anyway. That should be sick. Next week, we're going to be doing a TVT opening. We're going to be talking about Protoss players and defending those 2 base pushes, which everyone's dying to. Fast tank pushes, as well as all of the 2 Liberator Widowmine pushes, 2 Siege tanks, 2 Liberators, all of that sort of shit which Protoss players are dying to. We're going to talk about that. If you guys have any other suggestions you want to see next week, shout them out in chat, post them in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course, punch a penguin in the cankle. Catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.